Hello everyone, welcome to Red Snapper. My name's MJ and this is Snap or Pass, a series where we look at the new cards coming to Marvel Snap each week. And this week we've got one of the most insane and complicated cards I have ever analysed coming to the game. It's Infinity Ultron. He's a 5/6. On reveal, add 2 of Ultron's stones to your hand. In a minute we'll look at the stones of course, but in this video in general we'll look at some decks, synergies, counters, all the normal stuff. But we'll also look at the stones in detail, the combinations of stones, what power levels you can expect, which combinations you really want and which combinations you don't want. And it's going to be extremely interesting. But this is going to be a long video guys, a warning. But I've been working on this for like 6 weeks or something. I've been preparing this video. So please like the video to show your appreciation and subscribe. Right, kicking off this video, let's look at the Spotlight week that Infinity Ultron is in. Guys, this is kind of like almost an avoid week, okay? We have got Cannonball, who is now a Series 4 card. Great card, great variant, but is a Series 4. Alongside Pixie, who isn't really seeing much play at the moment. Not meta relevant, not really all that interesting. I mean, I like playing her from time to time, she's kind of fun. This variant is quite nice to be fair, but again, also a Series 4. So it all kind of hangs in the balance, and whether you need both of these cards, and you also want Infinity Ultron, because basically guys, as we move out of the Spotlight Cash system into the new Snap Pack system, you'd be able to get the 2 cards, the 2 variant cards here, well not the variants, but you know what I mean, Cannonball and Pixie, for 3,000 each. That's sort of what you're spending on the Spotlight keys, so this isn't really a week that I can recommend you go for. Anyway, let's look at the stones. Right, okay, so I'm literally covering 4 stones. I'm literally covering key information on 4 stones. Is this really the best use of our time, considering this video is probably going to be well over 35 minutes? I don't think so. Okay, that's better, thank you. Right, so let's look at the stones. Here we go. They're all called the Infinity Stone. So we've got Infinity Time Stone as a 3/1. On reveal, put a card from your hand here. The Reality Stone is a 3/1. On reveal, add a drone here. Set its power to Infinity Ultrons. So that's starting off as basically a 6 power, right? Then we got the Mind Stone as a 3/2. Ongoing, your on-reveal abilities here happen twice. We've seen this before. Then the Power Stone is a 3/2. On reveal, double Infinity Ultron's power. Then we've got the Soul Stone as a 3/3. On reveal, for each of your full locations, give one of your cards there +2 power. And finally, Space Stone is a 3/4. On reveal, move the lowest power enemy card here to the location of Infinity Ultron. I think before we talk about these, let's move on to this next slide here. This is kind of how I'm going to try and remember what these cards do, because it's going to take a little bit of time. So I've given them these sort of like emblems, these avatars. The Time Stone puts a card from your hand. That's kind of Red Wing-ish. I know it's not exactly the same because Red Wing has to move and stuff. A lot of these avatars aren't quite the same. This is just how I'm personally going to try and remember it. The Reality Stone is kind of a Taskmaster, isn't it? My friend Gossy said it's also kind of like a Scarlet Spider, which I like as well, especially because of the colour. But I think Taskmaster is maybe more accurate if you think about the fact that one of the other stones doubles his power. You can kind of like, you're basically copying the power of Ultron, so that's why I've come up with that. Mind Stone is actually literally Wong, the only difference is he's cheaper, so that's cool. The Power Stone, kind of think of like the Black Panther power, it's doubling the power. Then the Soul Stone is kind of Dazzlery, isn't it? For a full location, you get +2, that's literally what Dazzler does. So yeah, and then finally the Space Stone, kind of the trickiest one, because I was between maybe Polaris or Stegron here. Obviously I've gone for Stegron. It moves a card, but it actually moves the lowest power enemy card to the location of Infinity Ultron. So it's its own very specific thing, but the nearest thing I could think was kind of like a Stegron-ish effect. So those are the stones, guys. If you want to circle back to this bit, obviously please do. Hey, welcome back. Please circle back to that bit. But otherwise, we're going to crack on and talk about which archetypes work with this card, because we're talking about 7 different cards here, and it's very difficult to pinpoint which archetypes work with this, because if for example you look at the Space Stone, you think, oh okay, it's a move disruption card, but actually that's not really the case. If it's only a 1 in 6 and you've really got no other tools that are helping you with move disruption, you can't put Infinity, well you can do what you want, But you can't put Infinity Ultron in a move disruption deck with Scream and stuff and just be like, yeah, I'll just hope that I get a Space Stone. That's just not going to work out. Decks in Marvel Snap, when they get consistency, that's when they become good, and so that isn't a consistent thing. So shortly we will actually look at which archetypes each individual stone fits into. I've just said fits, that's embarrassing. Fits into, just for your information, but not all of those is filtered through to the overall archetypes for Infinity Ultron. But the ones that have are on reveal. These are like, some of these are like some quite powerful on reveal effects, so copying them is good. Buffs. Because on 3 of the stones, Infinity Ultron's power is relevant. It's a relevant mechanic. So that is the adding a drone, the reality stone, doubling the power, that's the power stone, and the space stone, moving an enemy card to Infinity Ultron. All of those benefit from him having higher power, right? Some of them benefit incredibly from Infinity Ultron having higher power. So buffs makes some sense here. Zoo. Again, there's a lot of stones which either want space or use space or benefit from you having used space. All of this sort of fill your board type stuff. So Zoo makes a bit more sense there with stuff like Blue Marvel and stuff maybe. Again, there's some awkward breakpoints, but we'll talk about how you can solve some of that stuff. Shield. This is maybe going to be one of the main ones, or the most powerful, most potent. Quinjet. Quinjet reduces the cost of the stones to 2. Turn 5, Infinity Ultron is kind of taking the place of what would normally be like a Devil Dinosaur style play in that type of deck, or you know, I'm not saying there's only one type of deck for Shield, but so yeah, kind of might be a nice replacement for that. And then you have lots of options on the final turn, especially if you've played things like Coulson. You've got these other mid-tier, or even Valentina or Iron Patriot. You've got these other mid-tier cards that hopefully you can mix in with either one or both of the stones. Ramp decks. We've got one of the stones adds a card from your hand. So maybe you want that to be like an Infinite or a really big power card like Magneto, etc. And so you want to get Infinity Ultron out earlier to achieve that. And also, just in general, you want to get Infinity Ultron out as early as possible. And finally, Surfer. The stones are 3-cost cards, and there's other things you can do. Is there better Surfer decks? There probably is, but it is still worth mentioning the Surfer angle here. So, the actual mechanics. So he adds 2 stones to your hand at random. As far as we're aware, it's at random. Like, it's not cycling through a specific order, right? So it's going to be at random, and then if you're duplicating that effect, what I don't know is if you're going to get duplicate cards before you get all of the cards. We don't yet know that, but I would assume it'll just be completely random. If you trigger it twice, you could potentially get the same. Not sure. None of the stones synergize very well with the other stones, except for the Mind Stone. The Mind Stone is the Wong one, okay? So that obviously doubles the on-reveals of every other stone. So that obviously works, you know, well together, but literally none of the other stones have particularly good synergy. Apart from maybe if you think about like the Reality Stone adding a drone, or the Time Stone adding a card from your hand. Maybe that fills in a location because you've sort of pseudo played 2 cards and then you play the Soul Stone to get the +2 buff at every location. But that's still not like a wildly powerful synergy. So they don't really synergize that well together, to be honest, guys. It's worth noting that Ultron and 2 stones takes up 3 spaces. So this guy is taking up not only a lot of cost, that in theory is like 11 energy, if you don't discount, etc. But it's also taking up 3 spaces. Like, this is taking up a lot of space to do whatever you're doing, of which you don't know what it's going to be because you don't know what stones you're adding to your hand. So, are you seeing the alarm bells yet, guys? Alarm bells, alarm bells. Look up a comedian. I think it was Tim Minchin who did that one. Look up Alarm Bells by Tim Minchin. That is why I did that. Anyway, and it's low tempo for a 5-cost, so there's a high chance to lose priority. So maybe you mix in some tech cards into this deck, like Shang-Chi, Enchantress, etc. You can probably fit them in if you've ramped out Infinity Ultron, maybe via a Lunar Snow or something like that. Maybe you've got out a Serra as well. It maybe affords you to do quite a lot of stuff, including tech stuff on the final turn. Just a consideration. So the pros. He is unpredictable. Your opponent won't know which stones you added to your hand. They don't know what's coming. They might be... I guess like the flashy one, right, is the Power Stone. They're like, oh man, they're going to double the power of Infinity Ultron, and then they're going to add a drone to another location. So I need to be beating 12 in 2 locations. That might be like one of the flashier ways to win with Infinity Ultron. So that might be what their mind thinks towards. But actually, there's a lot for the opponent to think. Are they going to move my card to Infinity Ultron's location? Do I need to make sure that I fill that, or do I need to make sure that I'm better trying to win that, but am I going to lose the other locations, etc, etc. So there's a lot for your opponent to think of. Some of the combinations have a higher power output. As I said, in a minute we will look at the actual combinations of the stones and their actual power levels, and some of them are huge. Okay, he's a cool card, although it's a shame that the stones don't have more interesting art. Yeah, I'm not going to lie guys, I was a little bit disappointed. Like, I was hoping maybe we were going to get something like this, like the stones were going to be like either like encrusted into some of the drones, and we get like different coloured drones, maybe something like that. And so I really hope that we get a really cool variant somewhere down the line, which has got incredible variants for each of the stones, be they drones, be they stones. Shout out to my friends who will get this reference. Anyway, niche. But yeah, they're just stones with a bit of black wisp around them, so aren't they? Anyway, cons. He's unpredictable. Yeah, we said this was a pro as well. It's a con for you. He's unpredictable. Some very weak pairs of stones. For example, Space Stone and Time Stone. So that is like adding a card from your hand. You don't know what it's going to be. It's a random card. You could pull an absolute dud. Maybe you draw your Quinjet on the final turn and you pull that down. And then the Space Stone just moves one of their cards to Infinity Ultron's locations, if they even have space, right? Or maybe you do that and it loses you the game because you moved a mid-tier card from one location that you were winning already, and it's enough to tick over the Ultron. Lose the Ultron location. So yeah, oof. He's a low base power on Infinity Ultron and low base power on all of the stones. Like, all of the stones are below the typical value that you would expect, right? Like, what? For 3 cost cards, you're definitely wanting like either 4 power with a really powerful ability, something like Hope, which, you know, really is significant for the game, or you need something like a 3/5 with a powerful ability like Polaris, Copycat, the likes of Rocket and Groot, who can get up to like the equivalent of like 3 9s, 3 10s and stuff. So literally all of the cones, brilliant. All of the stones are basically underpowered. So yeah. And to get the most value out of Ultron, he needs support. This is not a card that you just stick willy-nilly in a deck. You need to either extend the game with magic, or have the extra energy with Luna, or be able to afford more with Quinjet. You have to have something. Otherwise, Infinity Ultron is just not going to work. So let's look at those specific combinations. I'll disappear from the screen for this section, guys. And we'll just roughly talk through these. So the Mind Stone, this is the Wong, right? The archetypes this works with is like Bounce, maybe like being able to duplicate the effects and stuff. That might be nice. On Reveal and Surfer. But as none of the other stones work with Bounce, that's why I've sort of struck it off from the list and can't recommend it. That goes for any of these archetypes that you're seeing. And you're like, oh, how come we haven't talked about that yet? That's why. Anyway, so Mind Stone combinations. Mind Stone and Reality Stone, so adding 2 drones to one location, right? That's bad, because in this scenario, you're basically not doing much else. So you're pretty much just adding 2 6-power drones to one location, where you also need to have either 1 or no cards. You pretty much need to have no cards there, right? This is bad, because in your other location, what have you done? All you've got is Infinity Ultron and whatever else you've done leading up to this. This is just not that strong. It's going heavy in one location, still not even that strong. What, you're adding 13 power at this one place? It's easily outpaced, right? And yeah, there's space considered, so no. Similarly, pretty much the same reasons for the Time Stone. This is kind of the Red Wing one that pulls stuff from your hand. You're pulling 2 random cards from your hand. I mean, it might be alright, but by this point, you need to have completely nailed down another location, which in the composition of this style of deck, I don't think you will have done. Then the Mind Stone and the Space Stone. Again, this feels pretty bad. You're moving 2 cards to Infinity Ultron's location, if there's even enough room to do that. Yeah, I'm not too sure about that, guys. And then the Power Stone. Now, this is obviously good, because the 6 power Infinity Ultron, if you haven't buffed him, goes to 12, and then 12 goes to 24. So that is good. It gives you a really solid chance to win the Infinity Ultron location. The problem is, again, you need to have completely secured another location, because this total power that you're adding to the board at this location, where you're playing these stones, is 4. And so you need to have known that you need to have locked down or be winning another location before you play Infinity Ultron and know which stones you're going to get. So this is, again, so difficult. And then finally, the Soul Stone giving you +4 in each of your full locations. This seems fine. Okay, then the Reality Stone. This is, of course, the adding the drone one. So in combination with the Time Stone, you're adding a drone and then you're adding a random card from your hand. That might feel fine/good. It gives you the ability to spread out the power a little bit more. Yeah, sure, you don't know what you're pulling from your hand, but this seems alright. Then the adding a drone and moving a card, that I think might be fine, because you can maybe like super bolster the Infinity Ultron location with a second drone. Again, you do need a lot of space at that location. So yeah, is it enough? But then anyway, you move something else. Yeah, could be cool. Then adding a drone and doubling Infinity Ultron's power. This is basically the best combination in the game, in my humble opinion, because you actually play them in the reverse order. You play double Infinity Ultron's power first. You've got a 12 power card, and then you play the Reality Stone to add the drone. The drone is adding 12 plus the Reality Stone, that's 13. So doubling his power and then adding 13 power somewhere else. Absolutely awesome. This is actually like probably the best combo. It's nice, it's fun. I have actually, something I haven't mentioned whilst I've been going through these, is I have listed either the minimum power, the power, or the maximum or average power of each of these combinations in the top half. Anyway, let's continue on. The Reality Stone and the Soul Stone is just fine. You're adding a drone, so you're adding 2 cards to one location, and then the Soul Stone lets you get the +2 for each of your full locations, so you might have filled by then. Then the remaining Time Stone combinations that we've not yet talked about. Adding a card from your hand and then moving a card. This is like maybe one of the weakest combinations in my humble opinion, because it's so random. You don't know what you're doing, and then moving the lowest power card to Infinity Ultron. It's like you're almost trying to lose a game in a way. I don't know. Then the adding a card from your hand Time Stone and doubling Infinity Ultron's power seems fine. Again, it's really random. You don't know what's happening, but fine. And then adding a card from your hand and giving the +3 power everywhere. Yeah, fine, whatever. Right, then the Space Stone. Moving, again, as we move on to each card, we're obviously whittling down the amount we've already talked about, right? So Space Stone. Moving a card and doubling Ultron's power, yeah, seems fine. You can move a card away and hopefully win that location, and hopefully you'll win the Infinity Ultron location because you're forcing power out of other locations into somewhere where you've grown. Fine. But then moving a card, so you're not adding anything extra, and then giving each of your full locations +2. This is also really bad. In fact, this might be one of the worst ones, because you're not adding cards, so you basically need to have filled everywhere before you've got the stones, pretty much. So yeah, no, I'm not sure about that. And finally, the only combination we've not talked about is doubling Infinity Ultron's power with the Power Stone, and then giving +2 everywhere. I've actually said that this is one of the good ones, because this is at least actually a lot of power output. If you look at the power output here, this is 23. So this is like one of the highest power outputs you can get. So when I should actually clarify that these power amounts are Infinity Ultron, who's 6, the total power of the stones that you've played, and then whatever they've done. Okay? Fine. Fine. And then, yeah, I don't really want to talk about the rest of this stuff. You can see. No, actually, sorry, I will talk about one thing. So you see Zoo pops up a few times and Buffs pops up a few times. This is why these are the main archetypes, right? So Ramp, Buff, Zoo, and Shield. I don't actually have Shield on this diagram here. I think Shield might even just be the best one. But there's the slight problem. There's another problem, guys. The slight problem with this here is that 2 of these archetypes are kind of the opposite of each other. Zoo is all about filling your board, having small cards and finding a way to buff those small cards, or otherwise benefiting from having all those cards out via Dazzler, etc. But then one of these other archetypes is having big stuff and cheating big stuff out. So these are like at odds with each other. So what are you going to do? You can't do like a combination of Ramp and Zoo, because what if you get the Time Stone and you pull out a Squirrel Girl? Yeah, I don't know, guys. Right, let's talk about locations. Good locations include pretty much anything where you can give Infinity Ultron power, and pretty much any location where you can ramp him out or get extra turns. Okay, so of course we've got Limbo here. We've got Feast to allow you to get out Infinity Ultron earlier. Elysium for the same reason. Altar of Death for the same reason. Especially with Altar of Death, you can actually pull stuff from the stones, like the Reality Stone and the Time Stone. Pull stuff from your hand, or add a drone there. Utopia allows you to play the stones out cheaper. Panopticon is also worth mentioning because the stones are created cards, so they'll be extra powerful in Panopticon, which is very nice. And then the buff locations, again, we've said several of the stones make Infinity Ultron's power relevant, so any way to buff that is really good. Like, think about the drone or doubling his power. These become much more powerful on their own for every point of power that Infinity Ultron can gain. So Okoye, Nakia, Fastos, Forge. There's some cool stuff here, guys. And then a bad location is Central Park. Anything that clogs you, basically, because Infinity Ultron needs a lot of space. Yeah, sure, some of the cards actually benefit from you not having space, but you want to get your own stuff down, not the squirrels. Okay, so the counters. Gorgon makes your cards that didn't... No, it makes your cards that were created... Makes your created cards cost more. So I get confused because they've differentiated between hand and created now, right? Created in hand and created. Anyway, he's going to make them stones more expensive. Absolutely tanks you, right? Absolutely tanks you. Gorgon's... I say Gorgon's going to be hot. I don't think Infinity Ultron's going to be hot, well-liked, or well-played. So, Debris... Again, like, emblematic of Clog here. Clog is going to be a huge problem for Infinity Ultron. Cosmo, obviously going to stop not only Infinity Ultron from generating stones if they happen to guess that location, but actually will just absolutely annihilate you on the final turn, because it may often be obvious where you're playing, especially when a few of these stones need multiple spaces in one location. You might only have one location left which has like 3 spaces, for example, so then putting a Cosmo there is just going to annihilate you. Aero might be a really significant counter, because positioning and placement and space is so important with Infinity Ultron. So if they aero you, if you're playing down like maybe the Space Stone to move one of their cards and maybe pulling something from your hand, if they pull the Infinity Ultron to that location, you're not going to move anything, and potentially you might then be blocked and you won't add anything. You're just completely tanked. And I think I've said tanked many times, apologies. And finally, Eliath. You're often dropping priority with Infinity Ultron, so Eliath is going to completely annihilate your plans. And again, it probably is maybe obvious where you're playing at least one of the stones. So yeah, I'm not sure, guys. This is an insanely long video. Reiterate, if you didn't like earlier, please like the video now, because my voice is gone. Like, sold to the person over there. Delirious, delete. Cringe, might delete later. Feeling cute. No, didn't. I'm surprised it's taken this long for me to go fucking completely mental. Anyway, synergies. Quinjet. This is probably like the best synergy for Infinity Ultron, because it makes the stones cheaper. You can literally play the stones alongside anything that you've generated. Well, not anything that you generated, but like any like medium to good card that you've generated. Oh, and then we start thinking, okay, maybe now I can cook. Okay, Dazzler. We've spoken about it, the space stuff, right? You're filling up a lot of space, so she'll be good. Victoria Hand, giving those stones +2 could be really important, because they're generally quite weak on their own, like their own power levels, right? Fastos could be really nice, because not only does it potentially buff Infinity Ultron, it potentially makes him cheaper as well. And Lunar Snow. Lunar Snow is going to be Actually, Lunar Snow and Quinjet, I think, are the two big ones, because Lunar Snow, you can literally curve immediately into Infinity Ultron, and that's where things get really interesting, because you can really start playing out some more powerful things, doing some more powerful options, and yeah, I think that's going to be very interesting too. Right, let's look at the decks. Early Zoo, this is a budget deck. We always try and start with a budget deck for you newer players or lower collection level players, and I have to say, guys, this deck is complete garble trash. Don't play this. This might be the worst deck I've ever created, but basically you play out your early game cards. You've got the Quinjet here, which is so important for Infinity Ultron. You've got ways to buff Infinity Ultron, maybe, with America Chavez and Okoye. Of course, they're not all particularly likely to hit Infinity Ultron. But then you've also got Wong. Maybe you want to try and copy the effects of the stones. Maybe we get Wong and the Mind Stone, so we get like double bubble action. That could be quite nice. Maybe we could quadruple Infinity Ultron's power. And yeah, just the other big cards that we've got. Yeah, maybe we play out all of our cheap cards, then we play the Infinity Ultron, and we can play out the stones, and we get something big from our hand via Time Stone. That sort of stuff could happen. I don't know, guys. Seems pretty middling to me. Moving on to a premium deck, though, from one end of the monetary spectrum to the other. This is Agent Ultron. I think this is going to be where I'm going to go with Infinity Ultron. Should I get him, I'll obviously let you know at the end of the video if I think he's a snap or pass, and whether I'm going to get him. But this is, if I eventually get him, this is where I'm going to go. We've got Ant-Man, Quinjet, Victoria Hand as our lower ongoing cards, which can all be copied by Moonstone. These are all really important and really powerful tools, especially to boost the power level of the stones, get them out earlier or cheaper, etc. Very nice. Then we've got Collector to benefit from all this hand generation. Yeah? Let's not forget, Infinity Ultron is adding 2 cards to your hand. So that may be quite significant for cards like Collector, Devil Dinosaur. That's cool. Okay, we've also got Snow Guard in here and Hawkeye. So we've got so many ways to generate cards. We have got just some of the more powerful cards in the game that are just generally useful and everything, like Copycat and Galacta. You're just playing a good shield deck with some sort of hope and a prayer that something is going to happen with your stones with some devilish combinations. You know, if you've got the Moonstone down, you've got the Quinjet and the Victoria Hand on there, those stones start to become really powerful little units on their own, and that you can play amongst any of the other stuff that you've generated, or you just play it alongside like a Galacta on the final turn. You know, that's something you can do. The stones become 2 energy or maybe 1 energy in some of these scenarios, so you could do a stone and a Devil Dinosaur. Lots of nice little lines in this deck. This deck gives you lots of options, so I think it looks pretty fun. Then our final deck is called Ultramp. I'm not too sure about the name here, guys. Apologies and bear with me for that one. But this is a kind of floaty energy, rampy, weird, pulley from handy kind of thing, right? So you've got magic to extend the game. We're probably going to be floating energy because we've got things like Hope. We haven't got the best curve here because we haven't got any 1-drops. We got Luna. So, like I say, might be floating energy. But once we've got that energy, or once we've extended that game, we can start doing devilish things. We can add a lot of stuff to our hand with Nick Fury. Maybe play out an early Eson. We've got Hulkling for the randomness here. If you do get out those stones, and you do get them out either early or on a turn 6 when you've got a turn 7, you've still got more stuff you can do, like really big stuff, like clog them up with Hobgoblin. You've got a Bruce Banner here because you're floating energy and stuff. So, Misery can copy the stones if you want, or copy Psylocke, whatever you want. Actually, what was one of the? I'm sure I had a devilish combo in here. What was it? Oh yes, if you play Psylocke on 2, you can play Misery on 3. And then Infinity Ultron on turn 4. So it's a bit like having a Lunar Snow in a way. So yeah, nice little chain. Or you Misery one of the stones later on, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, there's interesting stuff here, guys. Just a reminder, this is like the 3rd or 4th time I've asked you to like the video. If you haven't done it by now, you obviously never will. You hate me. You hate me. Leave me. No, that's good. But yeah, please subscribe and turn on notifications as well. Before we head into the star ratings, guys, this is the one you've all been waiting for. What do I think? 2 stars, guys. And am I being generous? Like, maybe. I think from a fun perspective, though, he is actually... I actually just spat. Is that... God, I just spat. I spat out such a big piece of something from saliva from my mouth that I would be stunned if it wasn't caught on camera, and that is a shame. I'm sorry that he had to go through that. Yeah, from a fun perspective, surely this is his biggest strength, right? I mean, the stones, they're kind of fun. Adding them to your hand might be kind of fun. Playing them might be kind of fun. I don't know, 3.5. Even that is not like even his best feature is not like over and above wild. For the archetype, 2.5. What archetype is he really fitting into? I guess mainly shield, maybe sort of ramp. But he's not a good addition to either of them, really. And from a competitive standpoint, I don't think he's there. I just don't think he's there, guys. So, I actually think he's a pass. I actually think he's... To me, he seems like one of the worst cards they've released in a long time. Like, listen. We could be wrong, right? Well, I don't know. This is a preview. We haven't played the card yet. That's what this video is. It is a preview theory craft analysis. I could be completely wrong here. Maybe I'm overseeing something, or maybe he just plays differently when you actually get him in your hands. Maybe he just works better. Of course I could be wrong, but he seems utterly mid/bad. However, I am getting him. I am buying him with tokens. He's a big, epic, cool character. He had stones to your hand. Like, everything about him is cool, right? He's cool. So I really want him. I actually don't like the base artwork, which is very rare for me. I usually really like the base artwork of every card. I don't like the Spotlight variant. I don't like some of the other variants we've got coming soon. So I really hope we get a killer variant coming soon. Like Kim Jacinto is probably more up my alley. And especially if we can get some variants for those stones, that is what I would love to see. So yeah, I'm not sure about it, guys. But now we move. Well, what do you think? Let me know in the comments below. Finally, we move on to our previous card review. This is our new segment that we've recently added. We're talking about Kahhori, right? She's a 4/6 on reveal. Each card in your hand gives one of your cards in play plus 1 power. I have bought the card. I was actually extremely lucky and got her in 1 cash, which is kind of... I don't know, I was a little bit like, what do I do? I was in a dilemma because I really wanted the Cull Obsidian, but I had to save the rest of my keys, really, guys. So I'm a little bit sad that I missed out on the Cull Obsidian, but I can't complain because I got her in 1 key, right? Anyway, before she released, I said she was a 4-star card. I think on reflection, having played her, I actually do think she's maybe somewhere between a 4 and a 3.5. I've suggested 3.5 here. I think when I play her a bit more, I might just stick with my original rating. I actually really like her. She fits in less in the gimmick style decks, some of the decks that I proposed in my previous video, right? She fits less into that style and probably more so into a general shield deck. A deck where you're playing cards that just add to your hand and then you're playing those cards out. You're not doing anything gimmicky with that type of deck. You know your strategy. I think she slots better into there as just a natural card that you can play out, especially in the shield trap style of deck, which is a deck video that I made, and I know a few of you guys, I think it's actually probably one of the most successful and interesting decks that I've ever created myself, because a few of you guys said that you've played it. Some of you said you played it to infinity even. It's a shield style deck where you play cards early in a location, usually the right, block it, fill it up. The voice is absolutely going, guys. You block that location, you fill it up, you make sure you've got at least 1, ideally 2 or 3 cards in that location that were generated in your hand, and then you surprise win that location with Victoria Hand and Mr. Fantastic. What Kahhori does is actually gives you another nibble at that. You block the location early, and then you can get Kahhori down and get a couple of extra power into that location. So that's where I enjoy Kahhori the most. I'm still going to be playing her a lot. I haven't played her tons, but I'm really enjoying the decks that I am playing her in. Also, shout out to Alex Kocher. His deck, well, I can't remember what it was called, but it's like an Eson kind of ramp deck. Absolutely loved it. Incredibly fun, and that has Kahhori in. So yeah, really enjoying that as well. Anyway, guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know what you think of Infinity Ultron in the comments below, and I'll see you next time. Cheers. In this video, wow, there's, oh gosh, they're making so much noise. So much noise. Oh my god. I'll probably put this at the end of the video. It's like post-credits. What else happens in post-credits? Doesn't Thanos get the gauntlet in one of them? Fine, I'll do it myself. But this already got them all, so I'll just do it now. Right, we're on the road to 2 trillion subscribers. I can have any power in the world. Any power in the world. I choose to make myself the most subscribed to YouTube. How sad is that? Well, actually, that would make me immeasurably wealthy as well. 2 trillion subscribers. How much Beast has got? How much is Senior Beast, the fell one, as they call him? Yeah, they're probably far enough away that I can stop this. Yeah, but he's got like what? He's got like probably over sort of 20 quid. 20 quid a video. He must make more than 20 quid a video. I'd be loaded, mate. I'd have like 20 quid a week. Hello, everyone. Welcome.